Maybe seated. I want you to turn to Psalm 46 this morning. We're going to begin there because there's a parallel to our text that I want to point out. And while you're turning there, just want to remind you of two things. Obviously, we mentioned last week the tap tags are in front of you. And if you have Apple phone, you're going to tap the top. If you have an Android, you're going to tap the back. But I want to tell you why I'm grateful for the tap, because Tara and I got to spend a few days away this week with some friends. And you got to do that. And however you can. It doesn't have to be expensive. Matter of fact, our trip was a gift. We had some friends from Baton Rouge that called and said, hey, we got a condo in Florida. You want to come? It couldn't be worse time. She's getting ready for the trip to Southeast Asia. There's always something when you have kids that are going 47 different directions. But if you don't take the time will pass, friends. So we had some good times. And here's what I'm grateful. Because we have the tap tags, I was able to get your prayer requests. And I was able to pray for those of you who used those last week on the beach. So in the middle of this, you get bored. You're like, I'm good with God. I don't need this passage. Just go ahead and fill out that prayer request on that tap tag. And I'll be able to pray for you this week. The other thing I want to remind you of is for those of you that are interested in our family advocacy ministry, supporting our foster care, supporting adoption in B100 after our Connect groups that follow the service. There will be a meeting right after Connect Groups in B100 so you could learn more. You're not being obligated to foster or adopt. It may just be ways that you can support, that you can come alongside. We were able to take some of those funds that we talked about, bless those defects workers this past week, and this is another way. Listen, if anyone ever tells you that Hebron isn't involved in the community, here's what I got to say about that: hogwash. And you tell them I said it, and it's an ancient Hebrew word, all right? We strive every day and every week to say, Lord, use us in the place that you have put us for the good of this community and for your glory. And so that's one way that we can do that. I encourage you to be there. If you found Psalm 46, this is how it begins. It's a Psalm of David. And here's how he would sing it. It's a psalm, of the sons of Korah, but here's how they would sing it. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. But I think sometimes this is how we sing it. God is sometimes my refuge and strength. Or God is supposed to be my refuge and strength. And when we sing it that way, it's not because God is failing to be our refuge and strength, the very present hope. It's because we are failing to rely on him. But the sons of Korah could say, God is our refuge and strength. The sons of Korah didn't say, we're strong. They said, God is our refuge and strength. God is a very present help in trouble. And so because of that, the psalmist says, therefore, we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. The psalmist says, if everything in the world goes crazy, we're not going to be afraid because God is our refuge and strength and he is with us. He is a present and perceived help. He has promised to be with us. Jacob has an encounter here and his heart is going to be full of panic in our text. And what the psalmist is saying is there are going to be days like that where we encounter fear. But when we're reminded who is with us and what he is for us, we do not have to be afraid. He says there's a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. Now watch this, because they're going to repeat this twice in this psalm. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. I don't know if you noticed when I read Genesis 32, but in Jacob's prayer, he says, God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, and the Lord who said to me. He doesn't say my God yet. When he had met at Bethel before he went up to stay with Laban, he said, look, you'll be my God if you do this and this and this. Hey, God isn't interested in whatever deals you're trying to make with him. God is sovereign, and he is worthy of being your God. What I want to encourage you is somewhere, and I think in the passage that we'll see today in Genesis 32, and some that are coming right after, is where it was no longer the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac, but God became for Jacob the God of Jacob. Why does that matter? Because if you're here today, friend, it can't just be because he's the God of your dad, or he was the God of your grandmother. To every student in this room, there must come a point when he becomes your God. a transformative impact in your life where he is your God. He is not just the God who reigns over all, friends. He is a personal God, and we each need to know him personally. And so the psalmist, of all things, the psalmist in Psalm 46 is singing. He's not singing about the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac. He's singing about the God of Jacob, who is our fortress. And yet in our text, we're going to see where Jacob runs. And he runs to God as a fortress, sort of, but then he's still relying on him. The psalmist goes forward here in this text. Come behold the works of the Lord, how he's brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. Half the time, Lifeway puts that on a painting with a little pond and a cabin. And we use that verse to be still, have some quiet moments. The psalmist is not whispering that. He's not being quiet. He's being loud and saying, you need to know that God is sovereign over all. Look at what happens. He speaks and the earth melts. He causes earth and the battles of the earth to cease to the end. It says, I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And then he repeats this refrain. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. So let me ask you, beloved, do you know that the Lord of hosts is with you? Is the God of Jacob your God? And is he your fortress? If you think there's any other fortress, I can tell you, you're not going to find it in health, because health is going to fail you. I can tell you, you're not going to find it in finances. Just watch the stock market any given week. You can have Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and showbiz pizza tokens. They are all going to fail you. Friends, God is the only fortress who will never fail you. And to him we must run, and the world needs to see us running to him and begging them. There is no other rock on which we can stand. So, like Jacob, though, we all have to learn that, don't we? Because we're foolish. We sing, you're worthy of it all, and we take half of it back out with us to our car on Sunday afternoon. Maybe 90% of it. When we come to Genesis 32, I want you to come back there with me now. Jacob is going to pray this prayer, and he prays, God, please deliver me from Esau. How many of you have ever prayed a prayer and you didn't really know the answer you needed most? But God was gracious to answer in the way you needed it most. See, Jacob thinks his biggest problem is Esau. Jacob's biggest problem is Jacob. Just like you and me. Our greatest problem is never outside of us. Believe it or not, your greatest problem is not your spouse. I don't know if Tara believes that or not, but you know the biggest problem in my marriage with Tara? Me. You know the biggest problem in my parenting? Me. You know the biggest problem in pastoring here? Me. And the Lord has to be gracious to deliver me from me. That's why at the top of your sermon notes, I titled the sermon, Please Deliver Me from Me. I may think I need to be delivered from Esau, and that may be true. But there may be someone or something in some other aspect in my own life for which I need your help most. And so Jacob is going to have an encounter with the Lord in which he's never going to forget. I hope that all of you have those moments. The moments that the Lord called you from death to life, friend, you should always remember that moment. You should remember those moments where the Lord showed himself faithful. As we walk on this trail, as we journey on this path, there are markers that stand out where the Lord showed himself strong. And for Jacob, Peniel would always be one of those places. This is what happened in his life. If we were to put Genesis 32 in a sentence, it would be something like this, that on the path of obedience, God often strengthens our faith by breaking our self-reliance so we can experience the blessing of increased God-reliance. that on the path of obedience, God often strengthens our faith by breaking our self-reliance so we can experience the blessing of increased God reliance. You know, sometimes the prayer that we're faith to pray, or do whatever you need to do so that I can be fully reliant on you. One, because we don't want the pain. We're fearful of what he might take away. We're fearful of what it might go through. But you know what we all ought to be by the end of this service when we come to that response time? Some of us should already be there right now. Please, Lord, do whatever you need to do to have your full sway in my life. Please, Lord, here it is. You're worthy of it all. Here it is. Don't let me walk out of here with it. Don't let me go to connect groups as if it's saying, don't let me go to lunch as if I'm giving you all and just pretending. Friends, we don't need to pretend. We need real grace in this room today. We need real help and real strengthening from the Lord. I want to point out 3 truths to you. Here's the first one, that on the path of obedience, we can be assured of God's protective presence. That on the path of obedience, we can be assured of God's protective presence. You can find these notes on our app. You can take notes there. You could write on the back of one of those little prayer cards. Whatever you need to do, you can find to be able to follow along. Here's how the passage begins. Verse 1, Jacob went on his way. Where? To where the Lord told him to go. The Lord in the previous text had said, hey, go back. It's time to come back to the land of promise. And so what is Jacob doing? He's doing what the Lord told him to do. And as he does that, angels of God met him. And if you go back to Genesis chapter 28, in Genesis chapter 28, this is what happened when he left the promised land. He was given a vision of angels going up and down on this ladder. And in verse 15, God says, behold, I'm with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised to you. God promised him that even as he was going to this place to be with his uncle, God would not leave him there forever, that God would bring him back. And we've seen God already intervene. In the last text, his father-in-law chased him down. But the reason that his father-in-law didn't do anything to him is because God intervened the night before in a dream and told his father-in-law, don't say anything, don't do anything to this young man. And so the Lord has already shown himself faithful. And as Jacob comes back into the promised land, who's there? But the Lord, to remind him, he sends a host of angels to say, guess what? I'm still with you. Guess what? I've never abandoned you. Guess who's bringing you back to the place that I've ordained for you? And I want to give you some encouragement here. I want you to notice when does God provide for us? Exactly when we need it. Exactly when we need it. When does he need it? He gets this vision of these angels, and not just one, it's a whole host of them. And here's what I love. Jacob has no idea that Esau is about to be coming toward him with 400 men. He doesn't even know that. Do you remember those days when you woke up in ignorance and it was blissful? And then you didn't know what 6:30 held for you that morning? He's still in the blissful part. He doesn't know. But before he even encounters what will be a big problem that fuels panic in his life, God is already telling him, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm here with you. The Lord does it right when we need it. The Lord allowed King Hezekiah and his people to be surrounded by over 185,000 Assyrian troops. When did they need help? Some of us said, well, before they got surrounded. No. It was when they were surrounded by the troops that the Lord said, I'll give you what you need when you need it. And then one night, one angel took out 185,000 Assyrians. Jacob has a whole host that's with him. That's why he says, man, this is the place of 2 camps. There's my camp and there's the Lord's camp. And this is where I would encourage us. Peter writes, he says, he's given us his very great and precious promises so that we can escape the divine nature. He's given us our promises so that we can engage with him. And what does that mean? I mean, he's given us his word so we can know his truth and move forward in that. In Psalm 34, verse 7, the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. Psalm 91, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. You know what our problem is? We give too much energy to just what we can see rather than what we cannot see. One day I love it because Elijah, they're surrounded as well. And Elijah's servant is nervous and he says, Master, there are all these soldiers. Elijah's sipping his community coffee that he got from New Orleans. And he just says, we're all right. The servant's like, what? We're not all right. We're surrounded. So Elijah just says, hey, Lord, open his eyes. What does the servant see? Chariots of fire all around. And Elijah goes, told you. Friends, every day the Lord is protecting you whether you see him or not. We don't all get the privilege to see a camp of angels around us. But I can tell you this because of his promises and because of what Jesus said to us. He is with us wherever we go. There is a provision for it, but I don't want you to miss this. He gives us the provision when we need it, but look at where he gives it. It's on the path of obedience. Jacob went on his way. Jacob is doing what the Lord called him to do. You know, the amazing thing is the number of us who want comfort and encouragement from the Lord without walking the path of obedience. You know why some of you aren't being comforted and encouraged by the Lord? Because you're not walking with the Lord. But as Jacob is walking on the path of obedience, here the Lord is, and he's encouraging him. He's empowering him. And I love that. When did he see it? Did he see this vision when he was up? No. When he gets back, as he's walking on the way, God says, I'm with you. I'm with you. Just so you know, I'm with you. And there's a privilege of being on the path of obedience with him. And I love in this moment, God always knows, when we think about the when and the where, God always also knows, friends, what to give us. Adam and Eve needed covering. Guess what God gave them? Covering. Noah was going to need a boat. Guess what God gave him? Here's how you build a boat. We see that Israel was walking in the wilderness. You know what they needed? Food. Guess what God provided? Food. One day they needed water. You know what God did? He made water come out of a rock. And you know what? Your greatest need is not a 401k or to be cancer-free. Your greatest need is for your sin to be washed away, and God has done that in Jesus Christ. He meets us. Yeah? He meets us where we need. So Jacob, who's got 11 children and 4-ish wives, 2 servants, I don't know what you call them. I loved last week when Chet was honey, and 2 more. So thankful I could not handle that. I can tell you that. I am not man enough to handle that. Here, he has 11 children, 4 women, and Esau has 400 men that's going to be coming toward him. What is it that the Lord provides? There's a host, a camp of angels. And if only one took out 185,000 Assyrians, I can't imagine what you get when you get Michael and Gabriel and Boudreaux and Thibodeau and all of them from down the bayou angels. You got what you need. And so here is the Lord's provision. I want to encourage you that on the path of obedience, we can be assured of God's protective presence. Let me just ask this morning, friends, which path are you on? You on the path of obedience, or was all last week marked by your own journey of disobedience? Friends, there are blessings on the path of obedience, and that's what we see. Here's the second truth I want you to see this morning, is that on the path of obedience, we can be assured of God's purposeful providence. We can be assured of God's purposeful providence. Did you know that the path of obedience is not necessarily problem-free? Did you know that the path of obedience is not necessarily easy? But the path of obedience is a path that will be empowered. And so here's Jacob, and what you find is he sends messengers to Esau, and he just says, hey, tell him your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, female servants. I've sent to tell my Lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. You know, physically, he actually doesn't have to go through Esau's territory. He doesn't have to. Esau at this point, let me do it this way for you. Esau is down here. Jacob is coming from up here, and he's going over here. You got that? You can't get better than that on your car with directions. See, you're out here. You need to get right here, right? So this is what it was. He doesn't even have to go down here physically, but spiritually, he needs to deal with this before he comes back in the promised land. Or coming back into the promised land, he knows there's something that's not right. He knows what he did to Esau. He knows the deceit. He knows the conniving. He knows the scheming. And the reality, friends, you and I can walk in here every Sunday and pretend like we can ignore past sins that haven't been set right. But I'm going to tell you this. You should never approach that table on the first Sunday if there's a relationship that's not right and you can do something about it. We're told before we even come to the altar, we remember that our brother has something against us. Jesus said, you know what? That gift isn't most important. Just leave it. Come back. Go get that other thing right. And I want to be honest with you. There are some relationships we may not be able to get right. That's why I'm so thankful for heaven, because in heaven, all of those relationships will be made right. But for the part that we can do, it is our responsibility to try to make it right. To say, I'm sorry I sinned against you. I'm sorry for what I did. And that's what we see Jacob doing. There's evidence of his growth here, that Jacob is trying to make it right. Now, how many of you know when you take that path of obedience and you try to make it right, come on, let's be honest, the thing you're expecting is it's going to all go right, isn't it? How many of you found it doesn't all go right? How many of you found that it doesn't all go as you planned? How many of you found this morning may not have gone as you planned? Right? You never know. Here he's doing it. So what comes back? The interesting thing is the servants didn't have to go very far because Esau was already on his way. And I love this message. See, I'm a communication maximalist. It does frustrate Tara because I ask for a lot of questions of clarification. I just want to know. She wants me to know things intuitively. I do not. Need to ask questions, and that's bothersome to her. So I'm like, could I just ask one? What time are we doing this? She loves to put things in our family calendar. Dentist appointment, 4:30. But it's marked at 11 a.m. on our family calendar. I love it because she'll say, I don't have time to put 4:30, so I just type it out and put it at 11 a.m. I don't know if you know this, but when you enter in your phone, you could just click a little dial. 4:30. Anyways. I digress. I ask clarifying questions. Is it 4:30 or 11? In part because we also share a vehicle right now. And if you want your marriage communication to be strengthened, you should share a vehicle with your spouse as well. It's a grace every week. I love it. Here's what the message comes back. Hey, we came to your brother Esau. He's coming to meet you. There are 400 men with him. That's all he got. That's all we get. That's the message. There's nothing like, well, was he smiling? Were they like bringing stuff? Had he been playing a soccer tournament? And like, come on, guys, let's go see my brother, you know? He immediately panics because he's like, I don't think this sounds good. This doesn't sound friendly. Ian Duguid said, this doesn't sound like someone who is forgiven and forgotten. He's coming to meet him. And as he comes to meet him, look at what happens with Jacob. It says in verse 7, Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. Moses uses two words here that the Spirit gives him to let you know what Jacob was feeling. And I just wonder, man, have you ever been there? Fear that fueled panic in your life and just washed over you? Just washed over you? I can tell you I've been there a million times. I want to be honest with you this morning. The reality is I've struggled with anxiety, I think, all my life. I didn't know to call it that or what it was. I just knew that for moments, if there was a lump with our kid, I'm automatically going to think it's the worst thing. I'm not going to lie. If my children were driving and they called me, my first thought is they've had a wreck. Some of you are like, they're calling for money. My whole journey has been there. And I want to be real honest. And some of you may think less of me. And if it's taken 7 years for that, well, praise the Lord for that. If you really knew me, it'd be a lot easier. But You know what the Lord gives us to help us? His presence, His promises, and His provision. And sometimes His provision is medicine. And it's okay. Some of you may think medicine isn't necessary to help with some of those things. Listen, I'm on high blood pressure pills. Medicine helps. My blood pressure the other day was 110/70. I'm going to go to that office every time to take blood pressure. Because when I go to other offices, they're like, we would like to invite you to the ER. So anytime I walk out of a doctor's office, especially in Brazelton, and they let me out, I go straight to Papa Jack's. Won't He do it? Won't He show Himself faithful? Look, if I were a diabetic, and I've aimed at it my whole life, I would take insulin. I can tell you if I had cancer, I would probably pursue chemo. I just want to say in this, for those of you who may struggle, that medicine has been helpful for me, and the Lord has been helpful for me. So that when something happens, it no longer washes over me, but when Jacob says this, man, I feel it. I've been there all my life. There are things that would produce panic, and Jacob is panicked. And so what does Jacob do? Here's what he does. He plans, he prays. He plans, he panics, and sends 11 kids and 4 women across the river in the middle of the night. Now, some of you would say what Jacob should have done was pray, plan, pray. I would say to you, here's what Jacob should have done. Pray, pray, pray. Wait on the Lord to provide His plan. We don't do that. We're panicked. Remember where we started in Psalm 46. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And here's Jacob. And the first place he doesn't run is prayer. That's the second place he's going to run. The first place he runs to his plan. And what does he do? He divides them into 2 camps because he says if Esau gets here in the middle of the night, at least maybe he'll attack one and the others can escape. I seem to remember that he had named a place 2 camps. Do you remember that? He just did it in this text. He says there are 2 camps here, the Lord's camp and my camp. Now there are 2 camps, his and his. This is what we do. We let fear fuel our forgetfulness of God. God had already said, I'm with you. That didn't change with the message about Esau's location or the number of men. It didn't change. God was with him. And so here he comes, but what does he do? He plans. He then, second, moves to prayer, which we should be reminded, hey, prayer should be the first priority. It is okay to pray in the panicked times. But friends, it should be because we're praying in all the times. We're praying in all the times. In Acts 12, the church prays because James and Peter, they're arrested, right? But the reason they prayed in Acts 12 is they devoted themselves to it in Acts 2. It was a part of their practices and processes. His prayer is the longest prayer in the book of Genesis. And there's some great things about this prayer. He begins and he says, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac." He begins his prayer by petitioning that covenant relationship, that he knows that there's a relationship that God has committed. Let me do you one better, because next he's going to say, "O Lord who said to me." We all wish he'd said, "My Lord." But listen, you and I don't have to pray, "God of my grandmother, God of my grandfathers." You and I, because of Jesus, we can pray, "Father." Father. Here's what we're begging you, because we have a relationship. Do you? Friend, I got to tell you today, if you do not have a relationship with the living God, do not walk out of this room today. I'm begging you to know the living God so that you can call him Father as well. Jacob petitions on the relationship that's there. And then he says, "O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good." Did you know you don't have to remind God of what he's told you to do? He knows. But here's what Jacob's doing. He said, "You said this, and this is what I'm doing. I'm doing." Did you know there's nothing better to pray to God than his own word back to him? "Lord, here's why I'm doing this, because this is what you told me in your word to do. Here's why I'm seeking reconciliation in this relationship, because this is what you called me to do here. Here's why I'm seeking to forgive, because you've called me to do this." And so he says, "You called me to come back here. And so here's your word." And then look at where we see growth in Jacob. Verse 10, "I'm not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and faithfulness that you have shown your servant." Man, I can tell you this, there's not a single time I have ever prayed based on my own merit. Lord, you owe me this. Lord, I had a quiet time 4 weeks ago. Lord, I didn't respond when someone posted something ugly. Here it is. Here's what he says, I don't deserve anything good from you, Lord. And you know the truth in this room, friends? There's not a single one of us who walked in this room that deserves good from God. That's why it's all of grace. And he says, when I crossed this river, I only had my staff, and now I've become 2 camps. He acknowledges everything that I am is because of your goodness, your faithfulness. And now here's his honest petition. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. Hey, let me encourage you each week when you come in here and each week when you go back home, the best thing you can do is pray honest prayers. And this is what he does. He says, God, I am afraid. I'm afraid he's going to come and wipe out the women. He's going to wipe out the church. He's going to take us out. And I am afraid. I don't know what honest petition you need to bring to the Lord in this room today, but I would beg you to do it. Bring it to him. That's the beauty of the Lord. We bring him our mess. And he meets us. And then he just says, he ends the prayer by saying, but you said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. He closes this prayer, and he does it in praying for God's purposes, praying for God's glory. Hey, this is what you said, work according to that. It is an incredible prayer and a model for us of, I'm coming before you because of this relationship. I don't come before you because I have any real right in my own, but because you have been faithful, you have provided, and here's what I'm begging. The problem is, he still thinks Esau is his biggest problem. That's what he's prayed. Hey, deliver me. Now, how many of you have prayed, you've said amen, and then you went on in the very next minute as if you had not prayed at all? George Mueller, who would pray for the Lord to provide for the orphanage, and prayed all the time. George Mueller was once asked, what's the most important part of the prayer? He says, what I do after it. What I do after the prayer. Well, what does Jacob do? Well, he stayed there that night, but from the portion of the camp that he had, he's going to send 550 animals. He didn't send any angels. He didn't have that power, but he could send the camels and donkeys and all of that. He divides them into droves. Now, here's the amazing thing. He makes this plan. And he tells you at the end of it, look at what he says after he puts this parade of animals and sends them drove by drove. He says in verse 20, for he thought, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. Do you know how I know that the plan wasn't from the Lord? Because the Lord didn't tell him that. Here's the other thing. To whom did those 550 animals really belong? The Lord. Who provided spotted, speckled, and striped when there were no spotted, speckled, and striped? The Lord. Moreover, in Genesis 28, Jacob had said, hey, when I come back, I'm going to give you 1/10 of all that you've given me. Well, is he going to take this out of that 10th now because he's given it to Esau? You see, he's got his own plan, and what he hopes is he's going to bribe Esau, that all of these possessions will bribe Esau. And as we'll see next week, should the Lord give us that, Esau's like, what's up with this petting zoo, bro? He's like, I got stuff. I already have to have storage units. I got so much stuff. That's not what was needed. You know what was needed? It was Jacob not to be in the back, but to be in the front to say, I'm sorry, Esau. I'm sorry for what I did. When we pray, friends, we wait for the Lord to speak to us, to guide us. Jacob is still operating in Jacob, which gets us to our last part of this text, that on the path of obedience, we can be assured of God's prevailing pursuit. You ever had a night you couldn't sleep? Even on our trip the last few days, I woke up because I had a bad dream. It had to do with the kids and some of those things. And I know that some of you are faithful to wake up and to pray even for me in the middle of the night. And I'm so grateful for those prayers. And the Lord knows when we need what we need. He can't sleep. He stays, but it says in verse 22, that same night he arose, took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, his 11 children, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. How fearful do you have to be to decide in the darkness in the middle of the night you're going to send the little ones across the water? That's how panicked he is. And he can't sleep, and he does it. And then it says he sent everything else that he had. And then look at these 5 words right here. And Jacob was left alone. Wasn't about his family now, wasn't about his possessions. It was just Jacob. And then in the next minute, that man got grabbed. I can assure you, if you grab me in the middle of the night and I don't see it coming. For instance, every year we try to go to Washington Farms to the corn maze. I don't know if you know that. I'm part owner now because of how much it costs to go there. We have purchased a percentage of it, I believe. We go through the corn maze. Arabella, one of her favorite things to do is see how many times she can scare me. I don't know if you know this, but there are no AED machines in the corn maze. And even when I would know she was there, I would still react. I'm just going to be honest. I've already been honest. If I get grabbed in the middle of the night, it ain't words of blessing that may come out. I can tell you that. It may not be words of blessing. Here's Jacob. He's panicked. They're all gone. And the next thing he knows, he is literally fighting for his life. He is wrestling. Now, I want to be clear, because some pastors have taken this passage and say, this is what it looks like to prevail with the Lord in prayer every night. Friends, Jacob wasn't doing this because he was trying to get something from God. God was doing this because he wanted something from Jacob. Don't be mistaken. And this is God's grace. I hate that sometimes he has to do this, but sometimes he has to grab me because I won't grab him. And if that's what it takes, then what we should all say is, please, Lord, please grab a hold of me in the middle of the night. And what you would see is he wrestles all night. He wrestles. So there was no sleep. This man was already exhausted, I'm sure. He was panicked. And what the Lord knew he needed most was not sleep. What the Lord knew he needed most wasn't even a good hip. What the Lord knew he needed was to be broken of Jacob. And so he allows Jacob to wrestle all night. You know he was exhausted, but he won't yield. And somewhere along the way, Jacob comes to realize with whom he is wrestling. But he still won't yield. And so what is the angel of the Lord? Whether this is the pre-incarnate Christ, it is the Lord. That's who we know. He says, it's daybreak. Let me go. Jacob won't do it. So here's what the Lord does in one touch. He just touches his hip. I don't know if you realize this. He could have done that from the beginning. He could have done that from the beginning. Like Jacob isn't prevailing because he's overpowering the Lord. God is trying to show Jacob. And friends, please see Jacob so you will see ourselves. This is how defiant we are. No, I don't want to submit. No, I don't want to yield. No, I don't want to give you everything. But in one moment, he's ultimately going to be blessed here. Why? It's because he would be crippled and broken. And it took that for Jacob to see himself. And what happens in that moment of crippling? It moves to this time where Jacob clings to the Lord. Now, instead of fighting for his life, he's holding on for dear life. Because now he knows his physical strength is gone. He's about to see Esau. And what he says is, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. There's come a point finally in Jacob's life where he understands. He understands now for sure with whom he's wrestling. And he understands, I need you. I need your blessing. And he is clinging to the Lord. I can assure you this. The only reason he's clinging to the Lord is because the Lord is letting him cling to him. Again, this isn't like the Lord couldn't get out of the chokehold. This is God working in Jacob's life, bringing him to the point that Jacob finally clings to the Lord and begs. Let me ask, whom or what are you clinging to today? To whom or what are you holding on for dear life? Because you better make sure it can really bless you. Because only the Lord can bless you. This is why, friends, Ephesians 5:18 says, be filled with the Spirit. What does it mean to be blessed? It's just us saying, God, I need you today. God, I need you today. I'm not going to go out my door without your strengthening. I'm not going to go to my job without your strength. I'm not going to return to my house without your strengthening to be able to serve my family. And so the Lord knows there's another step that's needed. And it's really funny because after all this wrestling for hours, Jacob's clinging and said, I won't let go till you bless me. And God says to him, what's your name? It's funny if you think that all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's wrestle. I don't even know this dude's name. That's not what's happening. I need you to know that when the Lord asks questions in the Bible, it's not because he doesn't know the answer. It's because Jacob needs to confess the answer. He comes to this brokenness, he comes to this clinging, and the Lord says, who are you? And Jacob says, I'm a deceiver. I'm a schemer. I'm a grappler. It's who I am. At that moment, it moved from a time of confession to a time of consecration and change. That won't be your name anymore. You're Israel. You are the one who strives with God. You are the one who makes it through with God. You make it through with me. You will be known as Israel. And it was this time of transformation that would occur in his life. And I think in all our lives that we need this. We need this moment. We need to be brought to this brokenness so that we will experience the blessing of the Lord. But I want you to notice just a few things. First of all, again, it was a personal change. God is dealing directly with Jacob. You and I all need to experience a personal change from the Lord. Second, it would be a permanent change. Jacob would always be Israel moving forward. How many of you are grateful for the permanent change the Lord has brought in your life? That no matter how foolish you are, the world, the devil, and your own sin can't change it. Come on. That the Lord has brought a permanent change. And Jacob would become Israel. Doesn't mean he would become perfect. But he would be changed. And then I don't want you to miss this. It's a proclaimed change. How do you know that? Look at the very last verse. It says, therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that's on the hip socket because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. What do you think happened? Jacob showed up. That man's got a limp. And they're like, what happened? We could lie. Arthritis. But what we know is that Jacob didn't lie because Israel knew from their own, that's where God touched Jacob and broke him and then blessed him. That he proclaimed the change. Come on, who needs to hear from you what God has done to change you? Who needs to hear this remembered? And here's my favorite picture. As Mitch and the crew come, we're going to transition here. But look at verse 31. It's my favorite picture. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. He called that place Peniel because I've seen God face to face, yet my life has been delivered. Remember what he prayed? Delivered me from Esau. But by the end of it, he understands the real deliverance that he needed. And as that sun dawns, it's a changed Jacob. Jacob's greatest need was to be freed from Jacob. And God did what was necessary in that night and in those early hours to bring Jacob to that point. I want you to turn to Psalm 34 as we get ready to close this sermon. Here's what Psalm 34 says. John started our service with it in the first 3 verses. Look at what it says. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul makes its boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. Watch. Verse 4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. There's that word. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces shall never be ashamed. This poor man cried. Remember what Jacob said? I don't deserve any good from you. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fears them and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. I asked you, is he not just the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob? Is he your God? Is he your fortress? Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him. What does that mean? Burdened are the ones who don't. Burdened are the ones who don't. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints, for those who fear him have no lack. The young lions suffer want and hunger, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. If you look in the last strophe of this, beginning in verse 19, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. He keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken. Affliction will slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be condemned. The Lord redeems the life of his saints. None of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. Friends, I got news for you. The Lord's going to deliver us from all our enemies. He's going to deliver us from sin and death and the world. And in first part, because he delivers us from us. The psalmist rejoices. It says, I called out to the Lord and he heard. He heard because he encamps. And this is what's the truth. And that's what Jacob knew as he limped toward the horizon. The Lord was with him. And the Lord was going to deliver him. The Lord was going to provide for him. And some of you, you need to limp out of here today. Jacob wasn't expecting that encounter, and you may not have been. C.S. Lewis wrote an incredible book called Surprised by Joy, because God grabbed him one day and met him. And maybe that's what needs to happen to some of you today, that the Lord is meeting you to say, you need me. And I'm here, and I'm grabbing you that you may be able to cling to me. And if that's you today, friends, then run to him. Is God your God? Have you had this transformational encounter? As we come to the end of this text, are you on the path of obedience, or are you on your own path? The blessing is on that path of obedience. And are you fully surrendered and submissive? You are worthy of it all. Don't just sing it. Give it to him. He is worthy. Don't make him have to wrestle it. Are we praying, deliver me from me? Are we clinging? To whom or what are you clinging to more than the Lord? This morning, friends, let the Lord have an encounter with you. If he has to wrestle you, let him wrestle. That's what I say this morning. Lord, you wrestle whatever out of my hands when I'm so dumb not to give it to you. Are you fully submitted and surrendered? I know what it took to get Jacob there. What does it take to get you and I there? Fully submitted, fully surrendered. Maybe walking in physical weakness, but spiritual strength. Make it be, Lord. Make it be. Father, I pray this morning, and there are those who can't walk out of here and say that you are their God. Father, would you please allow this morning to be the morning of salvation? Would you allow them to even walk forward now to grab a minister and say, I need the Lord. I need the Lord. Would you help them to find me in the lobby after this? Just say, I need the Lord. Or God, would you just, in the seat where they are, or if they're watching online, in their living room, I need the Lord. And may you answer that cry for help. Father, your kindness, meet us where we are. And even in the times when we don't go seeking you, you come seeking us. And I'm thankful for what you did in Jacob's life, because there's a picture there that we all need. We need your intervention. We need you to show us the weakness of what we think is our strength. We need to be broken from self-reliance and brought to reliance upon you. So this morning, Father, I pray whatever you need to do in all of our hearts and lives to bring us to this point where we're fully submitted, fully surrendered, fully trusting, then do it, Lord. Do it. If we're clinging to things that can never bless us, help us to release those things. And then may we never fail to proclaim what you've done, that all may celebrate. Father, could today be a dawning? Could day be a dawning? And as we limp, perhaps, physically, may we be strengthened spiritually, overcoming by your faithfulness all fears that we brought into this room today. Father, may we taste and see that you are good. For your angels encamp around us, and you hear our cry, and you will deliver us all. Those angels will either protect us from what is coming, or they will usher us into your presence. And either way, your praise will be on our lips at all times. Your praise. You're worthy of it all. May we give it to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.